We haven't been faced with a crisis like this in our entire lifetimes. Believe it or not, I'm going to show you the data today that you need to know to make the most informed decisions. I wanted to show you first thing, is inflation up or down? Well, it depends on where you look. The second thing we'll talk about is the broken economy. Something is definitely off, and I'll give that to you. And the third thing is the major deceleration that's occurring right here in 2022. All of that and more. Bread prices skyrocket as inflation grips Europe. You're looking at a wonderful baguette, but this is just showing you in this Wall Street Journal article how everything making up the components of this bread have gone up considerably. Whether it's supply chain issues, whether you look at the commodities like the wheat in there, and of course the energy that's being used to bake the bread, all of it's gone up, and that has an impact on everyday individuals. Now, the bread might have, let's say, doubled in price, and maybe before it was $1, now it's $2, and that dollar is not such a big deal, but it's not just the bread. It's everything, right? Let me go into that further. Inflation triggers strikes across France. So you could see this in France taking place today, but I'll show you UK and other places where things are going wild. Workers around France have walked out to demand better pay amidst swirling warnings of a tough winter ahead in Europe. And people who watch this channel know I've been talking about you've got to be prepared for this winter because the prices of energy and food are simply going up and up and up. Okay, many on the continent are struggling with record inflation and an energy crisis. So when you add the two in together, of course, this is going to hit people really hard, especially those who don't have a lot of disposable income, because now that was taken away. Look, imagine you were paying a bill of $200 a month and now you're paying $500 a month, which for some people is really what happened. That is a big jump for them because also their food prices, also their other prices, also these things, they've all gone up and their wages have not kept up, of course. So they're basically talking about this. They're just showing you the comparison between this and the yellow vest that happened a couple years ago. They're looking at how the uprisings all around, in fact, are taking place today and people are upset. And why is that the case? It's something that I talked about in my second book, especially putting it right at the back of the book. I said, soon the earth will rumble under the heels of the angry mobs. And why would I say this? Is because when inflation hits hard, people are going to lose it. And that's a simple matter of fact. Let's move on. Let me show you. You could see this is talking about the UK. British food prices rise at the fastest pace since 1980 last month, driving inflation back up to a 40-year high. Food prices jumped 14.6% in the year through September. Of course, you look at what is made up in that basket. It depends on you, the individual, and what you have, but all in all, we look at this as being higher costs for most people. BBC prepares secret scripts for possible use in winter blackouts. What's going on here? Oh, that's right. They want to reassure the public in the event of a major power loss. That's called propaganda, but of course we're not allowed to talk about that. Look, this right here is just giving you this example of what could be happening this winter. Not next winter, not a future down the road. We're talking about this winter today. If the BBC, which is basically an arm of the government, is preparing this, we should probably be listening because I think they would know ahead of time. We've seen that before, wink, wink. Look here. Used car prices are now down 10% over the past year, the largest year-over-year decline on record, with data going back to 2009. This was a leading indicator of higher inflation rates in 2020, and the recent downturn is likely a leading indicator of lower inflation rates to come. Now, this is only one example, of course. Used cars are only one component, but it's important to look at all the different components and try to make it all up for ourselves. We saw what happened in the United States with inflation really picking up, and that happened to be at a time in which everything was kind of all wacky. We didn't know the direction it was heading. Some are saying that we're going to see lower prices coming in the next little while, but it doesn't happen overnight, of course. and we need to pay attention to the components. We'll talk more about that here. This is a wacky chart, but the only thing I wanted to mention was in the top right corner. This is talking about the Manheim Used Car Price Index. So imagine this like the wholesale version of what you would get. So it's a leading indicator giving us a little bit of insight before it would hit you at home, and it's down big. So that could give us a little bit of a warning sign for what's to come with car prices, okay? So if these start to come down, that was one of those that was really pushing the inflation levels up higher before anyway, not as much anymore. This is one that I believe is the biggest wild change that we have right now going on. Okay, we need to understand this. Shipper survey ordering inventory, you look at all of these things, ordering, net inventory, and my goodness, it's not looking good. That yellow line, that's inventory, okay? And we see that has really accelerated. This chart, by the way, goes back from 2010 up until the present. And quite frankly, we haven't seen these levels before. And that just shows you that there's so much inventory today. Why? What's happening here? That's the question we have to start asking. Why are they sitting on all of this inventory? The next thing is the ordering. That declined considerably. And you look at that, whether it's Walmart and Target and all these other retailers, something is fishy big time. What about this? Freight operators' peak shipping season is crumbling. We're talking about Q4. The laneways are normally jam-packed. We've got problems, we've got price increases, we've got all these different things that normally happen in Q4, not happening at all. This is huge, okay? I've talked about this before. I ordered over 100, probably 120,000 or more of inventory, zero delay, no problem, like totally normal, like as if we're in 2019, okay? No price increase, nothing. Now, I'm small fish, okay? But I give you my insight where I can. And this right now is something that we need to pay attention to. With retailers overstocked and shipping demand receding, clouds are gathering over US supply chains just as demand should be growing. You understand? So this is like a time in which it's totally normal. We're supposed to be encountering the tightness, the more, higher costs and all these things. And that's not happening at all. Okay? Look at this. The peak shipping season is fizzling as overstocked retailers cancel overseas orders and freight companies scale back expectations for heavy freight volumes heading into the holidays. Huge, right? They talk about Q4, they talk about all that, okay? This is important because you're going to be able to get insight from this type of data. Yeah, you're not going to see the CPI and the core PCE and all these nonsense things, but what the actual retailers are doing are going to be in response to what the consumer's doing. And what the consumer's doing, that's huge. You know it, I know it, and none of their data is going to make that go away. Okay, let's look further here. I wanted you to see this. You can look at the chart and basically it's going commodity spot prices, consumer inflation expectations, Manheim Used Vehicle Index, it goes on and on. And essentially saying that supply chain stress is essentially back to where it was at the beginning of 2020. Things have come down, we're easing up a bit. What's not explained here is the reason why. Is it because, everything's a-okay? Or is it that it's quite the opposite and we are simply seeing the effects of that? So much ordering, way too much in fact, trying to sell that all, liquidate all that inventory. There's a huge deceleration taking place and we're supposed to just sit here and think that everything's okay? Absolutely not. World steel use to fall in another bleak sign for the global economy. Look at this. Why aren't people building with steel? It's not as if suddenly we got this new technological advancements that we don't need it anymore. No, if we're going to be building stuff, we're going to need steel. And yet demand set to drop 2.3% in 2022. Not a huge change, but that growth is not there. Okay, slowing China economy in Europe, energy crunch curb use. Okay, so clearly we see the issues taking place today, and certainly this is going to exacerbate already existing issues. dozens of ships carrying liquefied natural gas, LNG, circling off the coast of Spain are unable to secure slots to unload have prompted grid operators for the country to warn that they may have to suspend loading to deal with this exceptional situation. So apparently they can't even bring this stuff in. Okay, because they say, oh, basically they can't keep up with the demand. There's so much that needs to go in through a means in which it really wasn't doing so because Russia not happening right now. And so what are they going to do here? Well, they're just sitting there. It's waiting to go. That stuff needs to make it in, but it can't because the supply chain and the logistics are not set up for this. They were set up. This is the way they built it. I didn't build it. Is that Russia is going to supply very cheap natural gas to Europe and everything's all good. But then something changed really quickly, okay? We already saw Putin saying basically, look, let's do the Nord Stream 2, let's make it happen. They didn't accept that. They're now potentially going to go through Turkey and make that a hub, and that's going to be okay. We'll see. We'll see what these politicians decide. And then we have the supply chain congestion scale, which I didn't know existed, but you've got Goldman Sachs talking this up, suggesting that we are moving into an easier time. Look, I want to break this all down for you right here. Let's take a look. I want to show you what this is really all about here, because you can see that there has never been this much debt coupled with rising interest rates. You know that, okay? This is unbelievable, really. The impact of the debt burden has been felt almost immediately. They started increasing interest rates and immediately you saw the emerging markets saying, please, please stop. You looked at all those in the financial system, investors, analysts, everybody say, what are you, crazy? You can't do this. This is going to be a problem. And of course it was immediately. Investors have moved money out of risk assets in order to prevent the constant uncertainty. So that's what they want. They want certainty. So they're going somewhat towards bonds and they're putting the money in cash and they're kind of, hesitant. Now, in this week, actually, it's kind of changed because a lot of money flew into equities. But in general, over the last little while, watch inflation. This is for you, okay? Watch inflation figures and their components. Big thing, right? Their components, because what makes up inflation is actually a whole long list of things. Very carefully to know when the central banks will stop their tightening. That's going to give us the indicator, okay? Because we want to look at inflation and we want to look at the components and then see that get to a level in which they're saying, okay, we can stop and kind of play it real cool right here. This is for you as well. Invest slowly with prudence. Be wise, knowledgeable, and never take anyone's advice. You must understand for yourself. Okay, this is important because people get this idea that we should just go all in. I saw this guy and he put in $4,000 and now he's worth 40 billion Dogecoins. Okay, come on. Let's get serious here. Okay, because we don't want to be this up and down. We want to sleep at night. We want to rest easy. At least I do. I don't know about you. You tell me. Okay? Did you find this video informative? If you did, the best thing to do would be to watch tomorrow's video because I'm going to connect that data and you're going to want to see it. Right down there, hit that subscribe. See you tomorrow.